Hey guys, Dan Young here with Dan's Millionaire Code podcast. And as you know, every week I bring a massive influencer, someone who's an entrepreneur, someone who's changing the world, someone who's massively successful in whatever field they are. And every week they will share their wisdom with you at absolutely no charge. But nothing in life is free, so there is a little thing that you need to do if you find value. Okay, and there's three things I ask you to do. One, whatever you learn here, and I want you to execute it. I want you to do it. Don't just think about it. Take action for the things that you learn here. Two, if you find it valuable, share it with your friends, loved ones, people who may see value in this. And three, if you get financial gain from what you've learned here, take 10% of your net earnings and give that to a good charity. You know, there's a few charities that I personally support, like Operation Underground Railroad, Nuzzles & Co. to save the dogs and cats, but pick the one that's important to you and give back. If you do those things, that's how you pay for this podcast, because there are no sponsors, there's no ads or anything. So today's guest is, we've known each other actually a long time. Good friend of mine, an unstoppable entrepreneur, Jeff Flamm. And I'll give you a little background on him. Incredible stuff here. CEO and founder of Infinite Mind, an incredible software called eyeQ, which actually, I think, wow, it must have been more than 15 years ago that I first used it. And I'll give you a testimonial, works. And I'll let you talk about that in a second. But what it does is it boosts your brain and reading enhancement. And it's been used, to give you guys an idea how amazing, it's been used by over 1 million people, and it's used by thousands of schools and businesses. Also, he's a real estate super Jedi mega titan. I want to be like him one day. And he's built massive projects. And we'll talk about those a little bit more in detail. But big stuff like RiverPark here, a business center, Enchanted Canyon, Innovation Pointe, which is like killer cutting edge in Lehi, heart of Silicon Slope stuff, amazing. And he's also partner at Koloa Landing, which I've stayed at, an amazing resort in Kauai. You're working with Bill Child, right, on that. So without further ado, Jeff Flamm, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on.
Great being with you.
This is so cool.
And with all your friends.
So we met many years ago, I think 20-something years ago at a fundraiser or something like that, maybe.
Yeah. I'm involved in a lot of those.
You're in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So just tell us, well, we can start anywhere. Tell us kind of how you got started and what you're about, you know, and how you got into so many things. I mean, you really have a lot of things going on.
Oh, you know, I was raised by a dad and mom that were 7 kids, and we had a ranch. So we had to work hard. Spent the summers raising cattle and hauling hay and all that good stuff. So I learned at a young age work ethic. And so to me, I think that's one of the keys is learning really how to work. A lot of people don't know how to work. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the key. In fact, a funny story, when I started in financial planning with my father and his firm, and 7 years into it, I was selling a lot of health insurance and life insurance and doing financial planning to folks. And we could see a huge need in benefits, somebody to help with the benefits process, because HMOs were introduced in the 70s and made a law that you had to offer 2 HMOs to your employees if you had more than 25 employees. And then the government gave interest-free loans to start HMOs to try to control healthcare costs. Okay. So from 1977 to 85, it went from 17 HMOs in the country to 400.
Wow.
So all 400 are calling on Marriott, they're calling on Bank of America, they're calling every national employer trying to get offered in each one of their areas. And so we could see a need there. I said, why don't we build a database and go in and manage this for Fortune 500 companies?
Wow.
So my partner and I started that. We were both working in my dad's financial firm. We started it. I ran the idea past my dad, and he said, well, if it was such a good idea, somebody would already be doing it.
How old are you when you're thinking of this stuff?
I was, at that point, probably 32, 33.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 33.
So just still getting going, right?
Just getting going. So the two of us started it, and we proved the model. And that's the first advice I'd give anyone that's wanting to start a business. Don't put a mega money into building something and then going and testing it, because you may lose a lot of money or investor money.
Let me take notes on this.
You've got to build something, a simple version of it, and go out and test it and see if people will pay for it. Because people will tell you it's a great idea, but will they really open their wallets and pay you money for it, right? Mm-hmm. So we went out and proved the model here first, and went into American Express and picked it up here locally.
Wow.
Did a great job getting everybody enrolled, answering questions for the employees who came in once a week, sat up in the lunchroom, said, here's answers to your benefit questions. They liked it so much that the senior VP from New York was there. He said, would you do this for us in Phoenix and in Fort Lauderdale? Because we have thousands of employees at those locations.
Wow.
I said, absolutely. So we branched off and got licensed, our insurance licenses in those 2 states, did it for them. Then when we approached Mountain Bell, did it for them in 7 states. So we proved the model in the first 2 years and had paying customers that were happy.
Wow.
Okay? That's the next key. You got to delight the customer. So I always say we under-promised and over-delivered. A lot of people overpromise, and then people are always disappointed after they buy the service or product because it's not what they thought they were getting. We would tell them, yeah, we'd do this, this, and this, and we'd always do more than even we told them. So clients like that. So then we went to a national benefits conference, set up a table like this, had a banner behind us, and everybody else at this conference in the exhibit hall had these incredible booths, right? Really fancy.
This is just like you 2 guys?
2 guys.
This is your company, 2 guys.
2 guys. It was called Health Benefits America. It went by HBA in the industry. So we set up this table, let us manage your HMOs. And we said, this is your current status. So in California, they would get maybe 3 or 4 or 7 HMOs offered. So the employees would have to get a packet from each one and try to go home and compare it all on the kitchen table. If you didn't have an accounting degree and know how to do spreadsheets, it was almost impossible to compare what you were getting. So you'd have, if you're going to have a baby, you'd have to try to find the maternity benefit in every one of these marketing packets, and there are in different formats. So you're trying to search for it. So unless you've had my speed reading company that you can do it fast, it became a monumental task for anyone. So whether you were the CEO or the mailroom boy, you couldn't do it. CEOs are too busy, and it was too hard for the average person. So what we did is got all the information on a database from every HMO in the country, got licensed in 48 of the 50 states because Alaska and North
This is a lot of work, man, right?
Yeah, so that was the
You 2
barrier
guys
to
are-
entry. The barrier to entry, you've got to have a barrier to entry or you get a great idea, somebody will copy you. Barrier to entry with us was we built a database and it took us 2 years to do it, a national one. It took us time to get licensed in every state. I actually had to go sit.
So time can
take tests in 7 states because you had to go on site and take their state exam, insurance exam. So I had to fly to Hawaii and take theirs and go to New York and take theirs in Florida and so on.
Wow.
So the barrier to entry is took a lot of time and resources to build this database. But once we had it, we were the only ones in the country that had it.
So you 2 guys are doing all this grind work, just
Right. So there were 2 of us. By then, by the second year, we had these companies. We had 7 employees. Went to a healthcare conference, said, let us manage your HMOs. We had 4 companies come in and set up times with us to meet with them. Wow. And it was Sears, Holiday Inns, Marriott Corporation, and Kodak.
These are huge.
They're big companies.
And American Express was your first like big giant.
Right.
Awesome.
And it was
client.
just in 3 states at the time.
Wow.
And the
you
Mountain Bell
and
was
your
in
partner
7
nailed
states.
that deal.
Yeah, we
that
did
was
a great job.
Wow.
So by the second year, we had $18,000 a month coming in commissions. Most guys would be out golfing, right? Instead, we took the money and built the national database, took that revenue.
Wow.
So we bootstrapped it and built this huge company. Went from 2 of us in 10 years to 1,400 employees. 800
Holy
worked in
mackerel.
the call center and 600 full-time employees.
Wow.
So we were growing so fast, nobody could accommodate us. We were in 3 office buildings around Salt Lake. So we bought 60 acres out next to the E Center, now Maverick Center, and built a business park. And we went into the city, West Valley City, and said, we'd like to build a business park here. We have plans to build 5 or 6 buildings here, but we need a road to go into here. Well, the city put in the road. So they did a special improvement district, put in the road, and then through our revenue, it offsets the taxes. So they work out a financial model.
Have you done?
bring it in.
This has been your first.
This is
big-
my first one.
So how'd you know how to do? Did you have a mentor, or did you read a book? Or?
Just figured it out as we went.
Really?
So we
That's
built,
a big first.
built one building, the next year build a second building, the next year build a third building. We were growing by 300 or 400 new employees a year. So we went out to these 4 clients. We went to Sears first. The lady, Maureen Bennett, she was the senior VP of benefits. Really nice older lady, and she sat down and she brought us coffee and donuts. And we ate the donuts, we didn't drink the coffee. And after we did our pitch, she said, I'm going to hire you. and I'm going to hire you for 2 reasons. And we said, okay, that's great news. What are the 2 reasons? She said, what you have is great. We need it. We're not doing well at what we do. And you guys have got this to where you can do it really well. But the second reason is I can tell you're men of integrity. You're from Utah. I figured you're probably Mormon and you're not drinking coffee, so you live your religion. So I know you're honorable. So that's why I'm hiring you. So then we flew to a Holiday Inn, sold that account, flew to Marriott, sold it.
Wow.
And while we finished the Marriott account, I got a phone call from Xerox. And they said, we're talking to our Kodak friends, and they said, you're coming up to talk to them about managing their HMOs. Could you stop in New Haven, Connecticut and meet with us? We said, sure. So we changed our flight plans and went to New Haven, sold Xerox, and then went to Kodak.
You're just getting these really massive.
All in one business trip. So if you have something really good that people will buy, they'll buy it.
Wow.
Right? So what was interesting, though, is when we went into Kodak, we walked into this boardroom, and it had like 25-foot high ceilings, all done in wood, fancy wood, huge table that sat 25, conference table, high leather back chairs. It's really intimidating. You go in there, and they had this group of people there, and it was the senior VP of benefits, the senior VP of HR, their attorneys, their communications people. So it had a whole entourage there, and we did our pitch. And while we were doing, after we did the pitch, all of a sudden, 2 of the senior VPs started arguing. One said, we need this. The HR guy and the benefits guy is real protective of his 45
They're
employees.
arguing right in front of you?
Oh, right in front of us. So he goes, no, I don't want to. How many employees do you have? And I said, 7. He goes, well, we have 45 doing this. There's no way you can do it with 7. And I said, what you don't understand is we do everything through computers. We don't handwrite forms and do all that kind of stuff. We've done it in a very, very efficient way. And so they excused us to leave the room while they duked it out. So about 20 minutes later, we're sitting out in the hall in these chairs like outside the principal's office. It was kind of funny. So they come out and get us, and we go in, and they go, you're hired.
Whoa.
So Ron and I went out to get in the taxi to go back to the airport, and we look at each other, and we started laughing. It's like these 2 little guys from Utah just go and write 5 Fortune 500 companies.
It's crazy.
And in one sales trip, right? So we start laughing, and then, honestly, we start crying. And we said, how in the heck are we going to pull this off? I said, well, we better figure it out. We've sold them. We were hoping to close 1, maybe 2 of them. We didn't expect all 5. So we went back to Utah, figuring it, scrambling.
5 grand slams
Yep.
in a trip.
In one trip. So that's how we got started. 10 years later, we were managing the benefits for 6 million employees around the country and their dependents. So about 23 million people, we managed all their benefits.
That's pretty massive.
So all of a sudden, people started finding out who we were because the big consultants were all losing their business to us. Mercer, Hewitt, these great big consulting companies that had always worked with Pepsi and Coke and FedEx and all these companies, we picked up all of those companies.
Wow.
So in 10 years, we had 127 of the Fortune 500. And so if you went from the top 130 companies in America, from the biggest down, we had 127 of the top 130. So it shows you.
Wow.
So anyway, then came along, everybody started wanting to buy us. Mercer, Aetna, all these companies came in wanting to buy us, and it just didn't feel right. Then one day, ADP came in and to contract with us to do COBRA administration for their payroll customers. Because Paychex, their competitor, was doing it. So they had to do it. So they came contracted with us. When they came out, they went into our conference room. Each conference room had a city name. San Francisco conference room. And it had the picture of each senior VP of every company. So San Francisco had Norm Snell, Senior VP, Bank of America, and their logo. And Chevron had Tanya Bernardsky and the Chevron logo, and Levi's and DHL, and all of our clients there in San Francisco. And if you went into the New York at Price Waterhouse, and it had R.R. Donnelley, it had all these companies. So you'd go in there and see all these company names, PepsiCo, whatever. In Atlanta, it was Coke and Home Depot. And anyway, so when they came in, they were like blown away. And I said, the reason we've done this is our employees work for these folks. They don't really work for us.
Oh.
These are their bosses. So we look at them every day when we're in meetings. This is who we're working for. So if you put the client first, everything works out. If you delight them, the key is the word delight. Have your customers delighted. So the other thing we did that was really unique was when we'd go in after the first 2 or 3 years, we'd meet with any company, and say, after we'd done our pitch, here's a list of our clients, call anyone on the list. We didn't just give them 3 names or 5 names to call of our customers that have had a good experience and not give them the names of the ones that hadn't. We gave them every name. Said, call them all. And sometimes you have bumps in the road. So in our company, we had this policy. You won't get fired for making a mistake, but you'll get fired for hiding a mistake.
Oh,
okay.
That's a good one.
You do not want to hide a mistake and cover it up because eventually it'll come out and then there's too much damage. So if there's a mistake and we sent inaccurate information out, at our own expense, we send FedExes out to every employee that was affected, said this was inaccurate, here's the correct information. Health Benefits America had a mistake in there. So we took responsibility. So they knew it wasn't the company, it was the vendor, and we made it right. And so companies love you. Even if you make mistakes, if you make it right and you're honest with them, they love you because they know everybody makes mistakes. They have them every day in their company. But when a vendor comes forward and said, okay, here's the deal and here's our action plan. So anytime somebody came to Ron and I, because Ron Gunnell was my partner that started it with me, come to Ron and I, we got a problem. Something went out inaccurate to Marriott employees. Okay, what happened? How did it happen? What do we need to do to fix it? And then as soon as we had the plan with all the key people involved in the conference room, we'd decide the plan. We would conference call the client and walk through what happened, what we were doing, and how it was fixed. And you know what? We never lost a client. We actually lost 2 of them. One was Xerox. We fired them because the women were so hard to work with there that none of my people liked it. And we decided our employees were more important than a client, that everybody hated them. So we just said, somehow this isn't working. All of our other clients are happy. You're never happy.
Bad mix.
We think you need to find a different vendor. And they said, great. A year later of going without our system, where everybody gets one booklet to compare everything instead of all these masses, Xerox called us back and said, we want you back. And I said, are you sure? I'm not sure we can work with these ladies. And they said, they're no longer here.
Oh.
And so they had us back. And then the other one was Mountain Bell. U.S. West took over all the Bell companies in the West. And so they fired all vendors and decided to use their own. And so they didn't use us a year. The next year we had all of U.S. West because employees that didn't have it and went back to the old way were not happy.
So this is just one of your many ventures.
That's one.
So it got to the point where you got bought out. So I wrote a check for it, right? How did you get to that point? Were you soliciting it, or were people just coming to you? And then how did that?
They were coming to us. Well, when ADP came out to contract with us to do COBRA administration, the senior VP, 2 of them were there. One of them was the COO. And when they went through, they liked so much what they saw, they were blown away to see who our clients were and what we were doing. And they had been looking for another arm to branch out into that would relate to payroll, and benefits is one they had their eye on. And when they saw us, they wanted us.
Is ADP?
So,
ADP,
ADP, the payroll company. So they called 2 days later and said, Art Weinbeck, our CEO, wants to meet you and Ron. And I said, great. And I said, when? They'd like to fly out tomorrow. And I said, no CEO flies out to meet a vendor. There's something more.
Wow.
So I said to Ron, I think they're going to want to buy us. And we had a board of advisors, and I called them, and they said, this is the one, because everything we do comes off payroll every day.
And you're private at this time.
We're private. And we never had any outside capital, so we owned all the stock.
You guys, everything. Wow.
And we had gifted stock to the top-level executives, so a number of them had stock. But so what happened is he flew out and said, we'd like you to do this in a more formal way and have you be part of the ADP family. And I said, we looked and your stock's trading an all-time high at 27 times earnings. So if you want to pay us that, we'll do it. And so that's what we got.
27 times EBITDA.
It was done on a napkin.
What?
And the next day we got a FedEx.
Big valuation.
A couple days later, a FedEx saying accepted. Everything we asked for was accepted.
Can you say how big of a deal is that?
It was about $100 million. Wow. So what we did is we wanted to do something for our employees, and we were a subchapter S, so you could only have 35 shareholders. Wow. So we were limited because I had gifted some stock to my 6 kids and my wife, and Ron had to his kids, and our executives. So we were kind of maxed out on who we could give stock to. Mm-hmm. So I said to ADP, we want to give stock to some of the other employees, and they said, you can't do it. IRS will come in. Instead of pooling stock where you're not taxed on it, you just end up with ADP stock, and you're not taxed on it till you sell it.
This is advanced stuff, guys.
Yeah, so you have the whole nut, the whole enchilada is growing, right? You don't lose a third of it or 40% of it in taxes because you pool stock, you just trade stock. So we ended up with ADP stock, and until you sell it, it's not taxable.
Wow.
So he said, if you change anything, you'll be taxed on it all. it becomes a taxable event. So we couldn't give stock to anybody. And one night woke up in the middle of the night and I had an idea. Let's take all of the profits this year, which were millions of dollars. I said, let's take that off the sales price and distribute it to all the full-time employees.
Whoa.
So that's what we did. So
that's a good Christmas.
Employees all got thousands, or some of them 100,000 or more.
You're a nice boss.
So
That's
600
cool.
people were very happy because they were able to pay off all their student loans and get into a home or whatever.
That's great.
So it was the best part of the sale was watching the employees.
You know, there's a interesting relation. This is what we were texting back and forth, and I said, when I grow up, I want to be like you, Jeff, because one of your beginning ventures was the eyeQ, right?
Well, that was after I sold.
Oh, it's after
I
that.
started this.
Okay, and then you went into that, where you created a software that helps you learn, makes your brain faster, read faster.
Right.
And that you want to talk a little bit about that because I'm in tech, and that's very highly.
Yeah, I actually found it in Japan. Our nanny, because I was traveling all the time with HBA, we had hired a nanny from Japan, and her brother created this in Japan and has had several million people use it there. So I found out about it, went over with the whole group. I spoke Japanese, so did my wife. So we went over, visited all the schools, talked to the principals, the teachers, the students, and knew they had something. So I bought the royalties to all English-speaking countries and then built it in English. And built it on a CD-ROM, and we did an infomercial. So we were selling 10,000 units a month.
I bought one off. I had the CD.
So he was one of my clients. Yeah. So we sold it for $250 for a single user or $300 for 10 users.
Way worth
family.
it. Yeah.
So we did about $280 million in sales over a period of maybe 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
Doing the infomercial, and then that crashed in 2008. So we started selling it to schools.
Oh, wow. And what the software does is, can you explain a little bit of like how amazing?
What it does is it's not like most speed reading companies that are pacers. They just get you to go faster. This is actually brain science. What it does is a left brain exercise, which is reading. It fires the Broca's area of the brain. And then it does an imaging exercise, which fires the visual cortex in the right side of the brain. So you have 6 to 8 exercises a day, and half of them are left brain, half are right. So we've had scientific studies done at the University of Utah Department of Neuroscience as well as Caltech in Pasadena. And both studies came out to show it increases brain function by 15 times in just 8 weeks. So you become a super learner. Just super learner. You can learn everything faster, everything better. So like I can read a book in an hour and a half, 2 hours, and high comprehension. I can tell you pretty much everything in the book. And most people are reading at 200 words a minute. And people say, well, why do we need speed reading? Well, I'll tell you why you need it. Number one, you need to use more of your brain. We're not using much of our brain. So this changes that. But 90% of the people in this country, you read between 200 words a minute, 250 words a minute. And I ask people, do you know why you read in that range? Nobody knows why. The reason is you read at the speed you speak. New Yorkers are probably 250 words a minute. In the South, they're probably 180. I don't know. That's just a joke. But people read at the speed they speak because you say every word in your mind as you read. So you only read as fast as you speak. So what we do is get them so that they can visualize everything and not have to read each word. And they get high comprehension because they focus on concepts and not words. So it changes the way you learn.
And I will give a testimonial to that.
Okay.
I did it, and we did it tests how much you start with as a baseline and how you improve. And what was interesting now, a lot of times I'll look at stuff, whether it's like a prospectus or contract or anything like that, and people go, I'm okay, got it. Did you? And I'm like, yeah. And I go over the numbers with them, and they're like, how did you?
That's exactly what happened.
It's crazy. Can consumers buy it?
Yeah, you can get it online under infinitemind.io. Infinitemind.io. When you go to our website, it'll say for schools, for individuals and businesses. So you choose individuals, and you can buy it for you or a family. They have family pricing. But
it's so good.
It lets you do the demo. It says free demo. Click on that. It'll test your reading speed. You do eyeQ for 5 minutes, high-speed imaging, and it'll test it again and watch what happens the first time you do it. You go up. Most people jump 50 to 100 words a minute the first time they do it.
That's, if you took the numbers that you gave us initially, it's close to like 50% enhancement. I mean,
first time you do it.
What would you pay for 50% faster time?
So the reason I'm passionate about it is I was a non-reader because I had lazy eye as a kid. And so this side's not in focus, so I have to turn to see it. So this side's legally blind, and so when I would read, this side's out of focus, and I can't track. I can't tell what line I'm on. And because this is out of focus, within 10 minutes of reading, I have a terrible headache.
Oh.
So I was never a reader. I got through college and read maybe a chapter or half chapter at a time, but never a full book. And
I
this
just
changed
cliff
me.
notes. And
Yeah, this changed me. So now I read a book a week and try to listen to one on Audible a week. So I try to get through 100 books a year. And what happens is you'll find the person that has the most knowledge in the boardroom is the one that controls the boardroom.
Yep.
If you have the most knowledge, you will be an asset to a company. I tell people when I hire them, if you're not bringing something to the table every time we meet, you don't have ideas, why am I paying you to be in that meeting? I'm not paying you to sit in a chair and pay you benefits to drink Coke and just be there and chat. You know, I want to have ideas, and the way you get ideas is read. Audible's great too, but reading is much better for me. I like both, but reading's much more effective because you can go really fast, and when there's areas you're really interested in, you can slow down and absorb, but you can find what you need. Whereas on Audible, you go through the same speed through the whole thing, whether it's of interest or not.
That's right.
And I say to people, if in the first 20% of a book it hasn't grabbed you, don't love it, chuck it and get a different book.
That's true.
If the author hasn't gotten the message through that you're interested in the beginning of the book, don't worry about it. But most people never read more than 10% of a book anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
So
tech, boy. And now I want to shift into what I'm really interested in because I've been doing tech since 92, and things have been great for all these years. And a lot of my mentors have been steering me towards real estate. And kind of like you got into some development there, I got into real estate kind of by mistake. Some of the landlords that we were occupying our space and were retiring out, and they were, hey, Dan, you want to buy this strip mall? Okay. And it's turned out to be very lucrative and a little bit of luck, with that. And now I'm trying to build buildings and things. So so you went into real estate based on that first place you needed for all your employees, like developing that?
After designing and building 3 buildings, but see, I studied architecture at Weber State, and my senior year, I went out and interviewed architects, and they were making $35,000 to $47,000 a year in Ogden, where I was from. I thought, oh, that's not much. My dad makes a lot more than that as a financial consultant. So I changed, and it took an extra year of school to change to a business major, but it was really great. I don't think there are accidents in life. Everything that happens to you comes back to teach you something. So I tell people, even the roughest jobs, the roughest roommates, whatever you've had, you learn something from. So everything is experiential. It's good for you. So because I had studied architecture, when we designed the buildings, I kind of designed them in the flow plan, and I liked it. So after building 3 buildings and I sold HBA, Dave Layton called me and said, there's 120 acres for sale out here in South Jordan. We should build a business park. So I think it's a good idea because we couldn't find a big business park to grow in. We were individual buildings with different landlords. So if you ever leave, you've got that. Try to find somebody to sublease your space if your lease is still in place. So I said, let's build one with 2 million square feet so that as people grow, we have room for them to grow. So we'd build out the park and add a new building every year so we could accommodate growth. And so we'd let them out of their lease and take bigger space.
So as your tenants grew,
as they grew, we grew.
That's why you built, I mean, that's a lot of square footage.
That is. It's 14 office buildings, and now we've got 4 planned in Lehi. 1's fully up. WeWork is there. Podium, there's a few companies in there. Yeah. Rain Focus, they've just changed their name. But and then the second building will be done in September, I believe, and that's when we'll have, it's fully leased. So we're starting building 3 now, and we're trying to decide whether to go like a 12-story building, the biggest one down there, or to still do 5 or 6-story buildings.
Those of you in Utah that are local to here, I work out at, we were just talking about, I work out at this gym, Lifetime Fitness, right there near where a lot of his buildings are. And if you're driving towards there, all these massive buildings along the way, those are the ones you built. And also in Lehi, Silicon Slopes in the heart there. If you're driving to there, you'll see your stuff there as well. And then lots of other projects.
Yeah, we're right on the highway as you head to Alpine. It's called SR 92. It's on your right. You'll see them. They're blue glass buildings with white trim, balconies and at night they light up and change color throughout the night. They rotate colors.
I remember driving down the freeway with my wife, looking at like new building projects and things going up, and these huge projects like you're building. And my thought to finally it was scenery, but then I realized, I told my wife, one day I want to build something, like that. I wonder who like the insane maniac Jedi guy is, who's kind of visualized this, brought the money together, got this whole thing planned and turned it into an actual piece of like metal and concrete, and that's why it's so cool to have you on. So maybe you could give tell us a little bit of your war stories through this, because it always sounds like it looks like it's easy building the software company, building the benefits company, developing all these projects. Yeah. What are some of the biggest obstacles you've ever had, man?
Not everything's a home run. So I've had some war stories, some bruises along the way. I had some guys want me to invest in building a great sports restaurant here in Salt Lake, like ESPN Zone in New York. They were young guys. They were friends of mine. We played racquetball a lot together, and said, sure, I'll come. And they needed a name to get the lease down at Gateway. So I was the name. So I came in and signed on it. But I wouldn't take the full liability on it, but we guaranteed a month's or a year's rent. So we guaranteed that in writing. So we started building. Unfortunately, the main partner that was running it went way over budget because they were trying to get it done in time for the Olympics. So a lot of you have been to Skybox, it was called, down in Gateway.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it was a great sports bar, big arcade for kids, and it sat 370 people, a huge restaurant. Okay, but our rent was $20,000 a month and $3,500 a month in parking validation. So it's very expensive. So we had to do almost $1,000 a day just to cover the rent. So anyway, tough thing. Never made money. And in 2008, when the economy crashed, people quit eating out. And so it was just time to shut it down. So it was a fun project. We called it our family hobby, is going down there for family night on Monday nights, playing games and eating. So we had fun at it, but it was a big money loser. So I tell people that want to go in the restaurant business, unless you have deep pockets, don't go in the restaurant business. It's tough.
It is tough, huh?
It's a tough business, yeah.
So I want to just ask you a few questions about, these projects. You're building these massive projects. How did you go about that? Raising money, or did you raise money from different investors? Did you fund it from the sale of all your other companies, or how did you?
Well, the way I got the money to start HBA is when I first got married, I bought an old home in downtown Ogden. Bought it for $40,000. It was one of those big old homes like you'd see on South Temple, big one. And so I just went in, and at night when I wasn't doing financial consulting, I would go in and remodel. So I just learned everything. I'd go to the library and get books on how to lay carpet and how. This is before you had, any apps that are easy to follow. And like YouTube and watch things. I went to the library and just got books. I learned how to do stained glass. I learned how to lay carpet. I learned how to do tile. So I did all my own tile and most everything but electrical. I didn't want to take that liability and burn down the place from doing electrical incorrectly. So the rest of it I did, and I made these into triplexes because they had a basement and usually had a downstairs door, and they had an upstairs, and I just flipped the stairway or whatever. And so I'd make them triplexes. So I did one of those every year. I'd buy one and keep it and then rent it out, and it would cash flow really well. So I'd save enough to start the next one. And so I did one a year until I had 7 of them. And then when we started HBA, I sold them all, and that gave us the cash to really start that company. So we never had outside investors. But see, I learned to work. I was working all the time.
So did HBA help fund all these buildings that you built now? All these big, huge projects?
Well, when we sold HBA, that gave me the money to do kind of what I wanted.
Okay, that makes sense. So now,
and I have good partners that have money too. So
okay, so you have friends.
Partners are everything. I say partners are important to choose as a spouse, the right spouse, because
I gotta write that one down.
With a partner, when good times are good, they're great. When they're bad, they're ugly. But you can't sleep together and make up like in a marriage. So, so partnerships are even tougher than marriage. So make sure you get a partner that, number one, is honest. And I've had some bad partners along the way that weren't honest with me, that just weren't as good a guys as I thought. So do your homework, find out who somebody really is before you partner with them, or give them your money if you're investing. Find out who they really are, because some guys are the real deal, and they're great to work with, and you'll love it. It'll be a good experience. But if you have a bad partner, it's bad.
I had a bad partner before, and it didn't work out. This was in the very beginning, and then finally I'm like, hey, let me just buy you out, and then it turned out to be great. And since then, I haven't had a lot of partners, right? Because I got maybe a little gun shy from that. Is there a rule that you have with partners? Like, is it just one partner or multiple partners in a deal? Or
I've always just had one partner, like at HBA. I haven't had any, but I've hired people at Infinite Mind, so I've just done that alone. But on real estate, it's real. when you go into big projects, you need some pretty deep pockets to guarantee them because these buildings are $30-40 million per building.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of liability there, and so you need some deep pockets. So if you're getting into real estate, whether you're flipping homes or whatever, you grow on that. Pretty soon you buy some multifamily, maybe get to an apartment. You can kind of build that way, or partner. Now, what some of my sons are all incredible. I've got 5 sons, and they've all got their master's degrees, and they're all C-level executives or own their own companies. One of them, he had 2 partners, and they started Candlelight Homes and sold it last year.
Wow.
And did really well.
I heard of that.
And one of the others built a big fuel storage company. He was one of the partners and sold. So they've done well because what they've done is learned how to go out and use other people's money. So they become the experts on development, and they go out and get investors, and they split it with them. So they do all the work, and somebody else puts in the money. So there's other ways of doing it without, even if you don't have money.
So
if you've got expertise, find partners. We just have to have expertise in real estate. Like my one son, what he did is went to work for PRI. It was a division of the LDS Church. They're spun off division of real estate. And he interned with them. So he learned everything about every property in the valley that was for sale. So after he finished his internship, he was hired by Fieldstone Homes to go out and buy 2,000 lots for him. So they gave him 2 years to do it. He did it in 8 months and worked himself out of a job. And so after he decided, well, I know everybody that owns the land, I'll go into this myself and buy and develop land. So he partners with the farmers and says, let's develop it and split it. So there's ways to do it without using your own money, but you've got to have the expertise. So I say to people, if you don't know anything about what you want to go into, go to work for somebody. They're paying you, learn it, learn everything. Well, you're working for somebody, and if you find a way to do it better, then break off and do it yourself. Find some investors. But first, you've got to have the knowledge. If you don't, it's too expensive to learn in today's world. I don't care what business you start in, whether it's the restaurant business like I did, didn't know a lot about it. Didn't realize if you're not on site as an owner, all of those guys pouring drinks, they don't have to go through the system of ordering that, every meal is paid for because it comes through Aloha system. It's tracked. But on liquor, they just pour the drinks and they can get huge tips. And I'll tell you, it can wipe you out if you have dishonest bartenders. So,
We'll do some live mentoring now. I need your mentorship.
Okay.
So, I've started this adventure of commercial real estate and some residential and some multifamily. And over the last 15 years, I've accumulated a few. What I did in the beginning is just tried to read a lot of books. There was a few books available. And then found a couple mentors, kind of on a mid-level level of development, some kind of small, medium. And what I found out is this, and this is why, because since you're doing really big stuff, I asked a lot of these guys, how do you do it? A lot of them we drove around, and they say, don't be afraid to drive. They explain how cap rates work, and how rent rolls and vacancy, and all these different things. A lot of this technical stuff. But a lot of these guys had it all right here. And I asked maybe like 5 or 6 of these guys, hey, do you have a spreadsheet or a template to calculate a valuation on a building, and if it's a good deal or a bad deal, or if it's right, is there upside? And most of them didn't really have that great of a template. A lot of them could just Kentucky windage it just because they're so experienced.
Right.
So what I finally did is I got some templates from different real estate brokers out there, and they were all kind of missing something. So I spent like a whole weekend combining them to one and just kind of tested it and theoretically, and then finally got a template, and it's not perfect, but it seems to work.
Right.
How do you do your math? Do you have people who do your math? Do you do the math? Or
I think part of my secret to success is just hiring the right people under you. I've got the best people. I've got one guy, Ken England, that's been with me 30 years. He was one of the first ones we hired at HBA. And he was a systems guy, and so he set up all our phone center and did all of that. And later, he helped oversee getting the buildings built and doing the contracts. So I negotiated him with my deal when I sold. I took him and then my assistant, Rob Hunter. So they've been with me for years and years and years, and they're brilliant. And so they're honorable and they're brilliant. And so I take care of them.
So they do a lot of the math for you, and
they do all that.
So you don't have to do all that crunching.
No, I don't do that.
Wow. In the beginning,
but I can figure out. No, I can figure it out. I've got a good number. I'm good at numbers, so I can sit and look at something and figure out most in my head and be really close. But they do the actual going in and prototyping it out and doing a pro forma. Figuring out where it's going to be and what the cash flow requirements are going to be in the first year or two with commissions and free rent.
Let me define for everybody what a pro forma is. A pro forma is almost like a spreadsheet, a prediction of like your profit and loss statement and what that looks like as far as
it's really
operation,
what you're going to spend and what cash you're going to need. So it helps you understand.
And if your pro forma looks crappy and you're going to be losing money once this thing goes.
I tell people, work it out on paper first. And if it doesn't, the numbers don't work on paper, they never work in reality. You've got to show that it works by having correct numbers. And if it doesn't work, don't do it, because it doesn't get better when you build it. If it's not good on paper, it's not going to be good.
I've got to refer back to a few pieces of wisdom that you've given us during this podcast. We used to call this, I used to call it an entrepreneurial seizure. I'm like, this is a great idea. It's so wonderful. Everyone's going to buy this, but without making sure that, it's viable, people are going to buy it, all those things. Boy, you dump a lot of money being dumped into these things, and it turns out to be a losing proposition.
So I say you've got to make sure whatever you do, you go out and test it and find out if people will really pay you for it. Because if they're not going to, you'll waste a lot of time and money on something and have it bomb. Because only one out of the best advice probably I got when I sold my company was from my partner, Bill Child, when we started building
awesome.
together. Bill's great. And Warren Buffett gave him this advice when he bought R.C. Willey. He said, Bill, I don't invest in startups. And the reason is I never read a business plan I didn't like. They all sound good. It all talks about potential and market that's out there and how many millions you could do if you had 10% of the market. So he said, I never read a business plan I didn't like. But he said only 1 out of 10 companies is here in 5 years. Now we're not talking a realtor or a little home, where you work for yourself. An actual company that's filed and started as a LLC or a subchapter S and it's got employees. Only 1 out of 5 will be here. 1 out of 10 will be here in 5 years. Mm-hmm. And he said, but the real remarkable thing is 5 years later, in 10 years, only 1 out of 100 ever made it big and made a lot of money for their investors. Became an Uber or a Google or even a Podium or any of these companies that have made it in Utah. 1 out of 100 startups ever make it big. Mm-hmm. So he said, I'm not smart enough to figure out the 1 in 100, but what I am good at is finding companies who have done very well, like Coke, Gillette. I watch when they have a bump in the road. Their stock's down because they tried new Coke and it didn't work, and so their stock by analysts was devalued, and so the stock dropped by 20, 30%. I go in and buy a ton of it because I know Coke's a good company. They're not going away. Mm-hmm. And so I wait and make 30% on it and then sell it and watch for another good deal. So he just buys low, sells high. It's the old Jewish proverb. Mm-hmm. Buy it low, sell it high. And really in real estate, your money's made on the buy. You've got to buy it right. If you pay too much for it, you probably won't make money. The person you bought it from made the money. So you've got to go in and change the value of the property. If you buy farmland and you pay $75,000 an acre, then you get it subdivided into home lots. And once you do that, now the home lots sell for $125,000 a lot or $250,000 a lot, depending where and what size. You've changed the value from farmland to residential, or you've changed it from farmland to commercial. That's where you make the money. It's changing the value of the asset. Okay? If you're just going to buy an asset that's already built, like an apartment building, you're going to pay top dollar. And the one that made the money, they made $3.5 million or $5 million building those apartments. They made the money. You'll make a return of 4 or 5% a year on it. Mm-hmm. And that goes up with time, but you're not going to make the big money. The person who creates the value makes the most money.
So for example, right now, if you're buying one of these multifamily unit apartments, you're like buying at a 5 cap.
Right. You're paying top
less.
Dollar for it right now.
Yeah. So that's like 5% a year return on your money.
Right.
And with inflation, if that goes up, then you're not doing too good at all.
Yeah.
So people have made their money. The guy who's making the money is finding the raw land or whatever it may be, and then turning that into something and dividing it up and developing. And that's what you do.
Increasing the value, right. So the ones that buy like apartments and will pay a cap rate of 5 or 4%, which means you're going to make 5% on your money. They're usually insurance companies or big investor pools of mutual funds for people's retirement accounts. They'll buy it in something like that because it's got steady cash flow to give them to pay out benefits, like for retirees or whatever. So, or insurance claims. So insurance companies tend to buy those kind of properties because they don't go in and develop them themselves. So they'll go and buy them. So there's always somebody to buy, but to make the big money, you got to develop it yourself.
Mm-hmm. So for the small dude starting out or guy or girl that's just getting going, Where do they start?
It's getting a good realtor that'll call you and say, hey, this guy's going through a divorce. He's moving. Somebody in the family died. They've got to get rid of the property. They need money right now. They're a motivated seller. You can get a great deal on this property. You can buy it for 60 cents on the dollar or 70 cents on the dollar. You buy that, turn around, put it back on the market or develop it, and then you've made 20 or 30% on your money.
Do you see that in this super hot market right now?
Well, it's hard in today's market. When the economy's not as strong, you can get really good deals because everybody that's in trouble, that's been transferred or moved or lost their job and they've got to sell their home, they're motivated, right? So they've got to sell it even if they lose their equity. They've got to get out of it. So you get better deals in a down market for sure. Mm-hmm. An up market, you just have to have somebody that knows there's a deal because somebody's got to move on it quickly. And you're a cash buyer. You can perform. Mm-hmm. So once they know you really have the wherewithal to close, you can get the good deal versus somebody that said, well, let me see if I can go get the financing on it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you grow. You start small and just keep building and get a little bigger and a little bigger.
Like you did,
or
right?
get the right partners, yeah.
You started, literally you started really small on a
just
farm.
Buying a home,
and
one home at a time.
Learning how to do carpet from reading books at the library and all this. And then now you've built what you've built now. That's incredible. So you sit on a lot of different boards and charitable. You say you spend 20% of your time now giving back. Yeah. What are some of the things that are dear to your heart?
Well, I've been on the aquarium board for a few years. We're getting ready to do a big new addition, a science and learning center. Great opportunities there for people to name things after them or their company or their family. If they want to name one of the exhibit halls or one of the exhibits, like our family sponsors the octopus exhibit at the aquarium we have for years,
cool.
And the garden eels. So we do those in our granddaughter's name who died of leukemia. So our family does that every year, donate so much money for those exhibits. People can do the same thing to help the aquarium. I've been on the board of Health Center Theater for over 20 years. My wife's been an actress there. We helped raise the...
Hale's awesome.
Yeah, we donated the money to help build the round stage in West Valley, and they've just kept growing, and we've helped them on their new one. Great. So I like to be involved in things that are great family entertainment and that make our community better. So I love that kind of stuff. I've been on the American Lung Board for years. I've been on, I started the Parkinson's Foundation of Utah with Mark Pinnock. Our parents had Parkinson's. So we've run that for the last 14 years. Just turned it over to the University of Utah, so we're out of it now. But what I really like is I'm involved with a Supermax prison. It's called Pelican Bay. Mm-hmm. It's in Northern California, Crescent City. These 75% of the prisoners are there for murder. So it's a very high security prison. Was deemed the most dangerous prison in America until this program came in a few years ago. And now the violence has dropped probably by half or 2/3. It's not near as violent as it used to be. And we have right now 400 prisoners in a program that we teach them to be entrepreneurs. So when they get out of prison, they start their own company. They write their business pitch. We coach them on it. They go through 9 months, a 500-page book. They learn how to keep books. They learn how to market. They learn everything they need to start their own company. And then they have one of the volunteers that becomes a shark and will invest up to $20,000 for any of them to start a company.
It's amazing.
So they'll start mobile detailing companies where they buy a used truck and a power sprayer and a 600-gallon tank for water where they can go in and generators so they can vacuum cars and ride at the location at the business and detail them. So we have some doing that kind of thing. Some become landscapers, but no one hires them. So traditionally, 73% of prisoners are back in prison within 3 years because no one hire them. They don't want an ex-con. They don't trust them. A lot of them have murdered somebody when they were a teenage kid in a gang, and they've changed. So when I go into the prison and I meet with each of these prisoners, they're over the last weekend, 3.5 days there. You get to meet with each of these prisoners and spend time one-on-one with them. And there's hardly any there I wouldn't just put my arm around and help. They're great. They just made bad decisions, and you learn it from a game or an activity they do called Step to the Line. She reads a statement, and if it's true, you step to the line. And the volunteers are on one line, and 30 inches away is another line, and all the prisoners are there across. One volunteer per prisoner. And she'll say, I grew up in a home with a loving mother and father in the home. And 80% of the volunteers step to the line, and maybe 2 of the prisoners out of 100 in this room. And then she'll say, I was arrested before age 16 for a violent crime. Now, 90% of the prisoners step the line and all the volunteers step back. And so it goes back and forth, the statements, And when you see the prisoner step back and the volunteer step forward, and then it flips with each statement, you understand why they're there. Not everybody is dealt the same hand. They grew up most of them in LA, they were in gangs as young kids. 70% of the prisoners there, their parent, one or more of their parents was incarcerated at some point. So their parents have served time. They've just grown up in that environment, a rough, very violent drug. Most of it's drug related. Violence and most of these criminal acts are either gang or drug related when they start taking somebody out. Somebody hasn't paid for their drugs, or somebody's done something to one member of their gang, so they're going to get retribution. So most of these guys really can change. They just need help. Wow. And that's what we do.
That's pretty significant, man. In fact, those of you who watched some of my bio from my original podcast know I came here from Los Angeles as a juvenile delinquent when I was 15 years old.
So you get it.
Growing up in Van Nuys, California, and was always in trouble. And those of you who don't know, I went to juvenile hall for a long time, doing really dumb things as a teenager, and came to Utah. Really great people, and people in Utah just took me in and gave me an opportunity and started, my company here. So, so people that you may think are not able to grow and create something because they made some mistakes before. I think we all make mistakes, though. Never judge people, man. I think people have a lot of potential,
Yep.
So, and I appreciate you, Jeff, for sharing that story, because it's a big thing.
And by the way, it's called Hustle 2, because one of the things Kat Hoke that started it, her name's Catherine Hoke, Hoke. She has a great TED Talk about it. But anyway, one of the things she does is say, step to the line if you've had a business, legal or illegal. All of them step the line. They've all done drugs. They've been, and so she calls it Hustle 2. You're going to get out and hustle, but you're going to do it in a legal way, not an illegal way. So it's a second chance. That's why it's called Hustle 2.
That's cool, because you know what's interesting? A lot of the people who've been on the podcast, we had like Rick White, right?
Yeah.
And he was homeless at one point. But a lot of these guys and girls were kind of considered a little bit delinquent when we were younger. And when we talked about it, a lot of us at lunch together, we talked about it's energy, and it's where you're focusing that energy.
That's right.
Energy is energy, but in focused in the right direction, some pretty amazing things and good things can come from that.
Right.
But the proper mentors, like yourself helping these guys.
Yeah. You've heard the saying before. Look at somebody's top 5 best friends, and you'll tell what they'll become. You hang around people that are successful, and you'll learn from them, and you can become that way. Set your goals that way. If you hang around with a bunch of people that just want to drink beer and watch ball games, you're probably not going to have the same kind of success as somebody that's out working.
Absolutely.
And hustling.
So here's a question for you. Where do you see yourself 10 years down the road, 20 years?
Well, I want to be like my partner, Bill Child. He's turns 88 this year. He's still working every day.
I've been trying to get Bill on the podcast.
Yeah.
But he's so busy doing deals.
Well, we have this big resort in Kauai, and so he spends a lot of time on that.
It must be hard, like sampling the lawn chairs and the food.
He talks to every guest while he's there. He walks around, talks to everybody at the pool. He's just totally friendly. But anyway, I want to be like him, that every day I have a reason to get up and make the world a better place. And what they find is when people retire, if they don't have something meaningful in their lives, they die 5 years younger than people that stay active and involved. You have to have a reason to get up every day when you're retired. So be on charities, go serve with your church, there's 101 opportunities, even for people
Bill's
who are
not retired, really.
No, he's not retired. No.
So are you ever? Are you ever?
No. I don't ever plan on retiring.
Retire when you ascend, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess retirement's when you can no longer get up and go to the office. For entrepreneurs, they don't retire, most of them.
That's the same answer I have. There's just keep going.
Yeah, keep going and enjoy it.
I want to summarize some of the lessons and the wisdom here, because I've taken some notes here. I tried to take good notes here. So one of the first ones is prove your model first and test it before you start dumping tons of money into it. Make sure people actually want to buy it, transact, make sure it's viable. Barrier to entry is a big one. When you're starting something, it's good to have a good barrier to entry. And sometimes, like for you, it was time. The time you took to build your database.
And getting licensed in every state.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. You have to take all those tests.
So here's some more hacks. Client first. And your customers, no matter what you do, have to be delighted, whether it's your software, your real estate development. That's kind of a universal rule, delighted customers.
Could I add one thing on that?
Yes, sir.
Most people are afraid to ask their customers if they're happy because they don't want bad news, so they don't ask. But the only way you get better is ask. So Ron and I met with every client every 6 months in person, go out to dinner, and we had a form. How are we doing on this? And they'd have to fill it out. How's my account manager on a scale of 1 to 10? How's their responsiveness? How's the overall service? And then what would we change? And they'd have to fill out this form before they came to dinner with Ron and I. And then we'd go through it. And whatever they suggested we could do better, we'd do better. And that's why our company got better and better and better.
Guys, this is how we've done it. We have a crazy track record with our group of companies. And I don't say this to brag to you. I say this to impress upon you of how important what you just said. For 27 years, we've never had a year that's not in the black with our group of companies. And how we've done that is surveys. And so every customer that transacts with us, they get a survey. There's a tool called SurveyMonkey. It's not necessarily the best one, but it's what we use. And when someone buys something, we get their email address. And it sends out a simple question. Are you super happy with your experience? And if the answer is no, it gives them room to explain why. And we have a whole team of people, in fact, you met some of them, in a room, and their job, they're given a toolkit of how to make sure those people are happy no matter what,
Right.
and get to that resolution of being delighted. And then what's interesting is we take all those surveys, and we call it VOC, Voice of the Customer. And if we have a VOC drop below 99%, if it's not 100%, we're concerned. And we've had a few quarters where they're at 100%. But when we see like a 95 or a 96 for some reason, then we get kind of sad and we get really extra involved. And that's the secret.
It is.
The voice of the customer. So ask customers if they're happy is important. Firing people. So you don't fire people for making mistakes, but you fire people if they hide the mistakes they make.
Or dishonest.
Very important. Make it right. That's another note I had for you. Always make it right. And partners. When picking a business partner, it's just like us finding a spouse. Find someone who's honest, has a good track record in their wake, someone you can verify is reliable and good. What are some things you do to verify partners are good?
You know, I kind of ask around to people who are really well connected and see if they've ever. It's kind of tough to find that out. Sometimes you don't find out really good, but ask around for a few people that are in the know. Ask them who they know that you know. You can maybe do it through social media, find out who their friends are that you're your friends, and call a few of them. Because people are pretty honest with you if you say, you know, I won't ever repeat what you tell me, but would you hire this person or would you partner with them? Just yes or no. That's all I need. If they say no, don't do it.
There's a test also that I do, and actually LinkedIn is a good one nowadays for some people. If you notice someone who's talking a real good game, and you go to their LinkedIn and they don't have like nice endorsements or people saying that are community members, genuinely good things, because typically people won't say anything bad,
Right.
but they won't go out of their way to say something good unless it really is good.
Right.
And so if you look at someone's LinkedIn profile and they have solid community members giving endorsements, that's pretty good because good people typically leave good things in their wake, you know?
Just don't look at mine because I've never asked for a
We just know you're awesome.
But
just look.
I don't think I have any good ones.
You could ask Bill Child.
Yeah, ask my partners.
And if you want to ask if Bill is good, you could ask Warren Buffett.
Yeah,
and he would tell
exactly
you.
Right.
Yeah,
they don't come better.
Mentor to mentor to mentor is passing down. So this is so great. And one of the first ones you gave me that I'm really going to say is important is work for someone who's an expert in the business that you might be interested in. So if it's real estate, work for a firm. Right. Get experience. If it's computer software, work there.
Right.
And then maybe you can invent your own thing. Right.
Exactly.
So this is awesome. Okay.
Totally awesome.
This is great. Where can people find you and your companies and things you're up to? Is there anywhere you want to steer them if they're interested in what projects you're working on or anything like that? And some people out there might be people that are interested, you know, because they have companies and they may have some sort of affiliate with you or something.
Just reach out on LinkedIn, probably is best.
LinkedIn.
And if they're interested in Infinite Mind, you just go to infinitemind.io.
infinitemind.io. And I encourage you guys to try that, though. Seriously, I would probably attribute it to learning at least twice as fast.
Yeah.
And it was weird because I watched this late night infomercial or something and ordered those CDs. And my wife's like, what are you ordering there? And then we were like sharing it. She's like, this is pretty cool. This is pretty awesome. So
Yeah, I haven't been on the air since 2008. And then when I was in the prison, 2 of the prisoners go, "You're the guy on TV." So they remember
commercials
10 years ago.
Oh man, this is so killer. Well, we could go on forever because there's so many good things, but we're out of time. But I do appreciate all the wisdom.
Thanks, Dan.
And thank you for coming on, Jeff.
Yeah.
Friends, remember, there's no fee. There's nothing to be on this. There's no advertisers, but there's 3 things I ask of you. 1, take all this information and watch this video or this audio over and over and over and get what Jeff has taught you and execute. Like, do them for yourself. Second thing, if you found this valuable, share it with friends and loved ones and coworkers who may benefit from this. And then the third thing is take 10% of your net gains from the knowledge that you've gained here that's increased your income and give that to a good, worthy, charitable cause. And the aquarium is a great place as well to give to and help out and support there. So thanks again for being on Dan's Millionaire Code. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks.